AJ, the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. So I want to visit with you about the Form 941X for the employee retention tax credit. Want to talk to you about the due date, how long you have until you have to file this to go back and get this tax credit. I also want to tell you about the tax effect, and then I am going to walk you through some basics related to the Form 941X. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my seminar PowerPoint, and I'm going to be using that to then go through some of this information with you. In the body of this video is a link to this seminar. Get instant access to it, as well as all the materials that go along with it. I could just take a second and show you, when you get my seminar, you get immediate access to 3-hour seminar. It's the most recent one that I've done. You'll be able to actually get a link to attend the next live presentation. It's the same as the video. The live presentation that I do is, in essence, an opportunity for you to come here at live and then ask Q&A at the end of the live. So it's all included. I also have a complete guide to completing the Form 941X that has 2 additional videos, give you an overview, give you examples here, a summary, spreadsheets, give you Excel spreadsheets, give you a flow chart, give you links to everything that you need related to the ERTC, as well as all the forms that you need that go into play here. And so as soon as you purchase a seminar, you get immediate access to all of this, and you're able to start watching it. And then on the how to prepare 941X, a complete overview of that. So I've got several videos here that you're able to go through. One of them, which is about 40 minutes long, where I just go through a real live example of the Form 941X with a client calculation, to filling out the worksheets that come with 941X instructions, as well as then completing the 941X. And you get a copy of the documents that I go through throughout that. And then there's a tutorial that I go through. It's a little over an hour, and the video is me going through with 2 people at my office, Alona and Cooper, my son, showing them how to complete a Form 941X. So all of that is then included when you purchase that seminar. So I'm going to, again, put a link in the body of this video so that you're able to check that out a little bit further. So thank you for letting me show you about that. I think it'll be worth it for what I'm getting ready to share with you in this video. But this right here is the seminar that I provide, and then this is all of the materials that I provide with you, starting with an executive summary, and then I walk through the 7 steps with you on how to calculate this, and then walk through the due dates, which I wanted to share with you. And so related to these due dates, you have 3 years from the original due date of Form 941. So I've just listed each quarter in which ERTC is available and indicated what the original due date is, and then what the 3-year statute due date is from there. So as you can see, there's lots of time to get it for the earliest quarter that you would be able to qualify back in 2020, which means you would have until July 31st of 2023 to go back and get it for 2nd quarter. Now, take note, if you do have any wages that qualify from March 13th to March 31st, which falls into 1st quarter 2020, so this is only for 2020, you do report that on 2nd quarter of the Form 941X. Related to that, right now, it's taken about 9 to 12 months to get the money. So maybe that'll speed up, but that's kind of where we are right now. Then I do a comparison between 2020 and 2021, walk you through, got some spreadsheets. I walk you through how to do the Excel spreadsheet that I provide on doing your gross receipts test, walk through with you how to calculate the number of employees. You get a spreadsheet in Excel related to that, and then talk about how to report the tax credit for income tax purposes, go over the aggregation. Then I also cover things that are related to the health insurance, because you do get to include the employer portion of health insurance. And then I've got a pretty good section here about when do owners qualify. the code sections that come into play. And really what that comes down to is that when you're determining if owners qualify, you add up together all of the family ownership. So what is the aggregated amount for all of the family? And if it's more than 50%, then they're not going to qualify because they have living relatives. So I walked through a bunch of examples related to that, talk about contingency fees, talk about the compensation, and actually give you examples in Excel spreadsheets that you get. Then I just cover all of 2020 to really break that down, cover all of 2021, some key things to not forget. But that brings us here on the payroll. So of course you can get these forms. These don't apply anymore. 941 you would have already filed. So 941X is really what is applicable here. A couple of things to note: what you'll need to complete the 941X. So of course you'll need that form. You'll need the instructions. I give you links. Of course you can just still get them at irs.gov. And you will fill out either worksheet 2 or worksheet 4. You'll need the original form 941 for which you're filing the ERTC for. Then you'll want to know the amount of qualified wages for the quarter and if there is any employer paid health insurance that would be included. Now, on the calculator, you bet. But I tell you what, it's pretty straightforward. You can get the instructions online. Of course, I'll give you a link to that. But I also, as a benefit for those that purchase the seminar on the 941X instructions, I went through and highlighted and then provided a link to my highlighted of everything throughout 941X related to the ERTC, because it's a number of pages related to that. Now, with that being said, general notes here is that you only want to complete the line items for which you are making any changes. So I'm going to jump ahead here. And so what I'm talking about here is that on the 941X, if you're only amending it for the ERTC, so on page 2, you would only be completing line 18A. You would only complete then on page 3, line 23, line 26A, line 30, and line 31A, meaning you do not put every number that you have from your original 941. Why? Because they didn't change. All you're reporting is what is different. And so the IRS is very clear throughout the instructions. So everything here in the general notes is actually from the 941X instructions. None of this would be my opinion. So you do enter the cents. You do not round the amounts. If something is a negative, then you enter it as a minus sign. You do omit dollar signs. Be sure to staple all sheets together in that top left corner when you send it to the IRS. And in the instructions, you do find the address where you send that, because it depends on the state in which you are in. Also, you are going to complete worksheet number 2 or worksheet number 4, but you do not include it. The IRS says specifically, do not include it. They go so far as that the worksheets that you complete where the numbers go onto the form 941X, it is for your records only, and you can only get them from the IRS 941X instructions, meaning they're not provided along with the form 941. So you find the worksheets that you're going to need at the back of the form 941X instructions. They're at the very back of that. But the other thing is that you want to make sure that you don't miss entering the figure, the total figure on line 27. And then if you're only doing this for ERTC purposes, meaning you're only filing 941X because you haven't filed 941X before for the applicable quarter, and you're getting the ERTC for the first time, and you didn't claim ERTC on the original form 941, you didn't complete a form 7200, meaning you're just now getting your ERTC, then really what we're looking at here is that column 3 would be a positive, column 4 would be a negative when we are talking about the actual form here. So in that video, I go through all of this with you in a live presentation, or I should say a real working presentation of a calculation and preparation of 941X. And you also get then all the documents that I'm using. So you get to have in front of you the documents that I'm showing you on the screen. And you will complete worksheet 2 or worksheet 4 before you would complete 941X, because these are the numbers that then go on the Form 941X. Now, in Worksheet 2, this is going to cover if you are getting the ERTC for any time during 2020 or the first 2 quarters in 2021. If you are getting it for 3rd or 4th quarter of 2021, then you use Worksheet 4. Now, only those that got or that qualify as a recovery startup business can get it for 4th quarter of 2021. And only the recovery startup business can get it in 3rd and 4th quarter, meaning recovery startup business can't get it before 3rd quarter of 2021. A recovery startup business, I do cover it in this seminar, but it's a business that started its trader business on February 15th of 2020 or after and had $1 million or less in gross receipts. But the reason I mention that to you is that for a recovery startup business, their overall employee retention tax credit is limited to $50,000 in 3rd quarter and limited to $50,000 in 4th quarter. Now, when you're filling out the Form 941X, you're going to put your EIN name, address. You're going to want this to be the most current information that you have provided to the IRS. You're going to mark it 941. And also you're going to then mark what quarter you've got it. And actually, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this from current slide here. So you'll put that information in there. You're going to mark the quarter, you mark the year, mark the date that you discovered the errors. Well, it's really irrelevant. We just typically will mark the date we put there as a date we're completing it. Here in part 1, you would check box 1 or 2. Box 1 would be you want a credit carried over to the next regularly filed Form 941 that you're going to send in the future to then offset a future payroll tax deposit. Or if you want a refund, they're going to send you that check, then you would check box number 2. So what you're doing here is you're reporting an over-reported amount of tax, and so you're getting the refund. Again, you would only check box 1 or 2. Then this is still a continuation of page 1, part 2, though, but you'll always check box 3. So no matter what, no matter how you read it, you always check box 3. Then you're only going to use check a box in either 4 or 5. You will not check boxes in both 4 and 5. It's a either or, because if you marked in box 1, part 1, okay, if you mark that, then you complete question 4, and it would be 4C for the ERTC. If you check box 2 in part 1, then you're going to check box 5D. Now, before you go much further into all the pages, be sure that on each page, just like in 5th grade, you put the business name, the EIN, the quarter, and the year, because if you do submit it to the IRS and one of those pages is missing that information, they very well may kick it back, or if it gets separated, you're definitely not going to get your credit back. So make sure that the top of each of those pages have that information. Now on page 2, the Form 941X, this information right here comes from line 18A, and all you're going to fill in on column 1 is the dollar amount that comes from the worksheet. Column 2 would be a 0 because in this example here, you've never reported it. And then column 3 is going to be the same figure as column 1 as a positive number. And then column 4 would be the opposite of column 3. So it's going to be the same number, but it will be a negative. So column 1, 3, and 4 are the same numbers that come from the worksheet, but column 1's a positive, column 2's a 0, column 3's a positive, and then column 4 is a negative. Now, when you go to page 3, all you're going to do is add up the previous boxes. Well, there's just one box. So line 23 is actually the same number that you were using from the previous page. And then you're going to get this other figure from the worksheet, either 2 or 4. And then you're going to add that all together. So in column 1, 2, and 3, and 4, it's the same. Column 1 would be a positive, column 2 is a 0, column 3 is a positive, column 4 is a negative. So make sure that those are properly in there. Line 27 should then be a negative, and then line 27 should match your worksheet as a check number. If you do not enter them in as negative amounts on column 4, then the IRS will expect you to write them a check. So it does need to be a negative. When you are looking at this, then you're just going to list what the qualified wages are that were used for the ERTC. For column 1, it would just be the amount. Column 2 is a 0 if you've never reported it before. So then column 3 is the same as column 1, all is positive numbers. If there was health insurance you were including, then you include it there. Now, if you are getting the credit for any time during the first quarter of 2020, which would only be March 13th through March 31st, then you record those wages there. And that health insurance, again, column 1 would be the amount, column 2, 0, column 3. And then you would just put in an explanation. You don't check the box 41 or 42. The explanation, even though you have lots of line items, is real simple. You just, I'm amending the return for ERTC purposes. End of story. Then you want to sign it. If you've had anybody involved with the ERTC calculation 941X, regardless of what they tell you, they do need to give you the information, and really they should be preparing this for you. Now on this, I give you the step-by-step. And so literally, if you're sitting down and you're going through the 941X, then you are able to see step-by-step. I literally mark down step-by-step for you everything that you're supposed to do on each and every page. And I give you the due dates. Then I knock out some big questions. Also, I go through some very common questions that we have about the wages. Then I walk through the timeline of the ERTC. And then I walk through specifically all of the major items in IRS Notice 21-20, which really covers a lot of 2020. I walk through the next IRS notice that the IRS gave us, 21-23, all related to that, as well as then, let's see, 21-49, and then 21-33. Also, as a bonus, in the event that you got PPP, I do walk you through on how to make sure that you're maximizing PPP and the ERTC. You got a strategy on that. I give you some worksheets that you get in Excel related to that. Talk about how the SBA and the IRS are working together. Walk you through by, if you hadn't gotten PPP forgiveness, then how to go about it. But then also walk through, well, if you already got PPP forgiveness, then how do you go about it to make sure that you can maximize? And so I've got a number of worksheets, especially related to that. Give you the main language from the CARES Act, as well as a Consolidation Appropriations Act. And so with that being said, that's kind of a big preview there of that seminar. So hopefully you got some good information, even though you had to sit through what I told you is in my seminar, and hopefully it's helpful to you. You know, with the Form 941X, it does seem a little overwhelming, but I promise you, when you actually dive into it, just like anything, it's pretty easy in the sense that you're only filling out those few line items. You're doing some simple math. I mean, technically, you're doing really just a few calculations on the worksheet, 1, 2, or 4. And then you're just adding together two figures on 941X. So I know that there's a lot of questions of, well, do I qualify for this, or does family, or what wages? You know, the big thing to remember is this. If you do qualify, then you can just go and get this. I know that maybe you feel it's overwhelming. It would be great if you had a tax professional, but make sure you have a tax professional that was a tax professional before this all hit. And not just a tax professional that says they're a tax professional. Make sure they're a tax professional that, what I just say, they've been doing this since before the pandemic. The reasoning for that is that when you're looking at these rules, in the event that you do need some assistance, there's a number of things that you got to have the context of how the tax law works if you're getting into some weird areas. But I'm telling you right now, 90% of you, you're not in a weird area. If your gross receipts are down, you qualify for that entire quarter. If they qualify, 50% down in 2020 or 20% down in 21 with different alternative and automatic methods. If you have gross receipts that have not been down, but you had a governmental order that shut you down, then the days in which you were shut down, those wages are then going to qualify. So in the body of this video, I also have a number of other videos. So I'm going to give you a link to my playlist, Recovering the ERTC. And as you can see, this 941X and going through, especially after I think you go through my seminar, is definitely not worth paying someone $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, if not much higher than that. From the standpoint of you're going to be able to do a lot of this legwork to figure it out. So with my clients, we have already gotten the ERTC for all of them and went through with flying colors. So with that being said, I want to say thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And right here is a link to go to my ERTC seminar. Love it if you'd subscribe. I'm now giving you a link to my ERTC playlist. And then I'm giving you a link right here to a video about the myths of the ERTC that are kind of spreading right now that are just simply not true. And I walk through it with you in a manner that really lays it out according to the law, not my opinion. So check out my seminar, subscribe, love it if you would, check out my playlist, check out the myths. And with that, have a great one. I appreciate you.